Guys, Madrid is empty. It's so empty. Normally, right now in September, it would be bustling, it would be packed. There'd be queues here outside the Royal Palace. The Plaza Mayor would be full of people, the Puerta del Sol as well, the streets. The bars would have people in them, the terraces would be overflowing, but it's just not like that. Now, there are a few tourists, not many, but tourists from within Spain, from around Europe. But here's the problem. Where the hell are the locals? Because here's the thing. Locals don't live in the center of Madrid anymore. Well, very few of them at least. And the same is happening in Barcelona, in Venice, and these other European capitals, these other European tourist destinations. I've read that similar things are starting to happen in Prague. Because what's happened is that with no tourists, we've lost that hustle and bustle, or at least that veneer of hustle and bustle that we once had in these cities. And what coronavirus has done is kind of revealed the true health of these cities. And guys, it doesn't look good.
Roberto is the chef at the over 100-year-old pastry shop El Riojano in Madrid's main street. It's a family-run place, and his whole family work here. It's a place we come to on our devour tours to tell their story. And Roberto lives in the center as well, and he says it's absolutely dead, and he's worried.
Pues Roberto, ¿qué tal está el centro hoy en día de Madrid?
Está bastante vacío, la verdad es que la calle desde primera hora se ve muy sola, muy vacía. A medida que transcurre la mañana se va viendo gente que salga a la compra, la gente que está haciendo regalos de trabajo y tal, pero realmente no hay gente, no hay público.
Sí.
Veremos a ver cómo va poco a poco el tema.
¿Por qué está tan vacío el centro? Porque
a ver, realmente aquí no vive nadie. En el centro son todos pisos turísticos, hoteles, y somos 4 vecinos los que vivimos.
Yeah. So Yoly, Roberto said that people don't really live in the center of Madrid anymore. And I remember when we moved here 10 years ago to Madrid, and I wanted to live in the center because it was historic and things like that, but you didn't want to. So why was that?
Yeah, I had no interest because really what I was looking for, it was like to have a local feel really in the barrio. I wanted to have my local supermarket, my local market, my local shops. I wanted to know the people that I kind of, dealt with and go to the fruit store and go to and there isn't really that feel, that vibe in the city center. Also, it was really expensive. So, we were going to be paying a lot of money for such a small place. So,
and also knowing your neighbors and maybe...
Knowing your neighbors, not having your neighbors change every couple of weeks, you want to be surrounded by a community, to create a community, really.
To community.
Eso.
First granizado of the season, and it's September. So
yeah, I know.
Screwed
and
that
the
up.
season is over.
The season's over. So you might remember that early in lockdown, Yoly and I made a video about how really, truly empty Madrid was. And there was a kind of a positive side, or at least a silver lining. We thought that, for locals, it was a chance for us to rediscover our city, to see it with new eyes. But you know what? That's kind of worn off now, that feeling of positivity. It's just not how it's evolving. A journalist who lives in Barcelona, writing about Barcelona, said, "We've reclaimed our city, but we've inherited a ghost town." During the day, there are Madrileños, there are people from Madrid who come into the center to do some shopping, go to the big department stores, but they don't live here, and that's the important part. And so this kind of center of Madrid, this historic center that was once a neighborhood, has lost all the infrastructure of being a neighborhood. There's no butcher shops, there's not any bakeries, there's bits and pieces, but nothing to kind of build a life around, I guess. Tapas bars are closed because they'd come to rely on tourists, because locals aren't coming down from their second floor apartment to have dinner in the tapas bar here, because they just don't live here in that way anymore. So we were expecting 2020 to be a bumper year. You see, this place here used to be my office. 6 months ago, it was bustling with team members working in there. Now it's completely empty. We had to give it up because we couldn't afford the rent. I earn my living from tourism, from Devour Tours, and also from this channel, Spain Revealed, which is all about helping tourists explore Spain. And how's this for timing? In February, I released this ultimate guide to Madrid, featuring the best hidden spots, family-run tapas bars, and more. Perfect for locals and tourists, but just weeks before lockdown. Yoly, you too.
Yeah, I mean, I used to give flamenco tours to visitors, and I remember actually giving my last tour on the 9th of March. Didn't know what was coming, and since then I haven't given one, and well, most flamenco artists are out of work actually.
We earn 100% of our income from tourism, which makes us feel a little bit conflicted for me, this whole issue. What's our responsibility in this? You know, when we came to Spain in 2011, there was a crisis, and I felt lucky that we worked in tourism because that was the strong industry.
Yeah,
but
an industry that was never gonna fail, right?
Exactly, and that's completely changed. I believe tourism can be good. It can be done in a good way. It can broaden our horizons. It can help us understand other cultures, but we have to travel in a certain intentional way. We have to be a certain type of tourist. So you remember this place, Yoly?
Oh wow, Bar FM. It used to be the last stop of our bar crawls. We used to come here.
The one you shouldn't go to, right?
I know, always. So Paco ran it. He would give you the most terrible ham in the world. There was Samantha Fox
Oh my God,
poster on the
beautiful
wall.
photo of Samantha Fox from the 80s, and farm equipment as well.
Yeah, it was amazing. One of the most authentic bars ever.
Full of soul, full of kind of idiosyncrasy. And what happened is this building was bought by a vulture fund here in Lavapiés in this neighborhood, which is gentrifying, and they kicked him out. They closed the bar down, and we lost it. And it's happened to other bars here in Lavapiés. And what happens is when these places close, these places full of soul and local character, you know, in tourist centers, they're often replaced by bars for tourists, and often all those rough edges are kind of smoothed over, and what we lose is that idiosyncrasy, that soul, those rough edges that make a place interesting, and the risk is we'll wind up with cities that are kind of bland
and very similar
exactly
to each other.
And that's not what we want. But some cities are starting to question this traditional approach to tourism. They're starting to say, you know, maybe we shouldn't just keep sending tourists to the same historic centers, the same historic sites. We need to diversify. We need to have tourists visiting other neighborhoods, other parts of the country that are lesser visited. But here's the challenge with that. We're right by the Mercado San Miguel in Madrid, and this is where people want to come. This is a really popular place. And you know, it's a fun place for tapas, but it's not really where I come for tapas. I go to the bars in my neighborhood or really local bars in the center. Whenever I make a tapas tour video in the center, it always gets a lot of views. But when I make tapas tour videos in neighborhoods and, you know, outside the tourist center, they get a lot less views. And that's kind of how it is. What do we do about that? And right opposite Tourism Ground Zero in Madrid is this place. This is, or was, Cerverith, a true family-run tapas bar right here in the center, run by Maria Angeles and Carlos. And they recently retired. Their timing was impeccable given what was coming with Corona. But this place was almost starting to look kind of out of place in the center, being such a true kind of family local place. So this place, Cerverith, no more, famous for the tortilla.
Oh, so delicious.
Yeah?
Oh,
Was it
runny, beautiful. I can't replicate it. It's a shame.
And what was that like in there? I mean, it was local, it was full of locals.
Family
right?
run. It was this couple running it and their son.
Yeah.
And just lovely people. Good selection of wines as well. And great cooking, and just so very local and so very different from everything around it, really.
Totally. And I know some of you guys watching this channel have been here. I know it's a bit of a pilgrimage place for tortilla lovers. But you know, what I want to know is what kind of place is going to take over Cerverith when something reopens here? Is it going to be a family-run tapas bar? So I heard this new term the other day. It was called regenerative travel. There's a term called sustainable travel that we've been talking about for a while, which is about, you know, making sure tourism is not harming a place. But in a way, I read someone say that's a pretty low bar to set, you know, make sure tourism doesn't harm a place. Regenerative travel is thinking, how can tourism make a place even better? You see, around the world, tourism is measured in sheer numbers. You know, countries compete to see who can get the most tourists. And Spain has been shooting up every year, hitting records. It's like we're counting how many people can we get into the Mercado San Miguel. But is that the best metric? Is that the way we should be measuring tourism? But back in my country, in little old New Zealand, they're starting to think of a different way of measuring tourism. They're starting to think about how they can measure it in terms of the well-being of the country and not just the economic sense. You know, how can tourism help nature? How can it help the health of the people of the country and the identity of the communities? Which is a really interesting idea. For me, that would mean, how can we measure the success of tourism in Madrid or Barcelona or Venice in ways apart from just numbers, in ways that say, well, do the locals in the center have markets to go to? Do they have a butcher shop? Can they afford to pay the rent in the center? Do they have places to hang out like Cerveriz or El Riojano?
Casatoni. We are at Casatoni. This is our happy place. It's one of the most authentic places left in the city center. I love it here.
And you know, we bring our tours here and Devour Tours as well. We've brought a lot of people here over the years, but I'm conscious we always have to make sure we're not pushing out the locals, that we're finding a balance between those two things.
And I think that Casatoni actually manages to really find that balance. And I do think that as locals, we do have an obligation to support local places like this one, you know, to really support authentic places and to protect the heritage. That,
it's your heritage. You don't want to lose it, right?
Exactly.
That's what makes Madrid unique, or Spain unique. And also, boquerones fritos.
Yum, yum, yum. That's heritage.
made in the moment. Juan just whipped them up like that. That's what we don't want to lose. But what about us as travelers? What responsibility?
I don't travel.
You don't travel anymore. We don't travel anymore. Well, a little bit within Spain. But the question is, what about us as travelers? What responsibility do we have in this whole situation? You know, when we travel, where do we spend our money? That's a choice we can make. Do we go to the local place? Do we go to Casatoni? Or do we go to the chain? Or do we even spend our money in the historic center? Or do we go out to the neighborhoods? Look guys, here's the key question of this video for me. How do we make sure that one day when Casatoni closes because of retirement, because of retirement or something like that, how do we make sure that the person who takes it over is some young person that wants to run a neighborhood tapas bar, that has a dream of running a place where they know the names of their clients, where they're a part of the community, where they're adding something to the community? How do we make sure that that happens, and how do we make sure that that person thrives in their new tapas bar? That for me is the question. And how do we make sure that we still have places like this to come to?
Yeah.
That's it guys. Would love to know your thoughts. Let us know in the comments. Salud.
Salud.
Lots of love from Madrid. Ciao.
Ciao.